So we have that ready to go. Of course. I'm typing into the keyboard right there, growing pains. Hey gang, what's up? We've got a great show lined up. I tried something, it didn't work. And so we're behind a few minutes. We're going to catch up though. Ehren, Canadian Looney, this is live. So, again, you caught me. I was trying to type to the people that are trying to watch. Thank you for your patience. I'll get back. I'm a little flustered, but not really. Just you like to try to get it right. And I didn't get it right that time. But I make many mistakes. I'm okay with that. Whew. Let's get back to tonight's show. This is it. How about this? This will calm us down. Those are my cats. They don't fight like that anymore. They don't even play like that. They used to play hard. The little one is 5.5 pounds. The big one is about 11.
I think our leader, Trudeau, I don't think I've ever heard him say a true word.
Oh, hello.
We're going to skip that. Get right into the good parts of the show. Let's get this going. Here.
Well, there was definitely a threat, and that's exactly why the RCMP decided to take the extraordinary measure of making public the fact that Canadians were being intimidated, victim of extortion, or even receiving death threats because Indian agents, or agents and diplomats from India were linked to these criminal actions. We've never seen that in our history. That level of transnational repression cannot happen on Canadian soil. We've seen it elsewhere in Europe. Russia has done that in Germany and the in the UK. But we needed to stand firm on this issue. And since the beginning of this entire episode with India, I said that we would abide by 3 principles, which are first to seek the truth, to make sure that Canadians would know what happened in the Najjar case and linked to his murder, but also to make sure that Canadians would be aware of what Indian agents, including diplomats, are doing on Canadian soil. Second objective would be to make sure that Canadians would be protected. And I'm happy to see that the RCMP decided to take the decision of going forward and making public what was happening here in Canada. And thirdly, which is fundamental also, particularly when it comes to relationship with other countries, it is the protection and the defense of our sovereignty. And so these 3 principles are the core of what we're doing, and that's what we'll continue to do going forward.
All right, dernière question, Carole de CNews News Montréal.
Can we expect more Indian diplomats to be expelled from Canada at this point?
Well, they're clearly on notice. So 6 of them have been expelled, including the High Commissioner in Ottawa. Others were mainly from Toronto and Vancouver. And clearly, we won't tolerate any diplomats that are in contravention of the Vienna Convention, and clearly any diplomats from any party from around any country, from around the world that would be putting the lives and basically the lives and of Canadians at risk.
Melissa Landsman had the courage to confront Vice Premier Chrystia Freeland during the press conference, and a tense exchange ensued that surprised many. Melissa not only questioned the president's policies, but also asked her very uncomfortable and personal questions, pointing out that Justin Trudeau has not fulfilled his promises to the Canadian people. The vice president's answers surprised everyone in the room. When you watch the whole video, you will question some things. Now it's time to go to the video.
Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
In the latest conflict of interest from a government of serial ethical lawbreakers, the Prime Minister wants his buddy Mark Carbon Tax Carney's company to be in charge of $10 billion of Canadians' pension dollars. Now, he doesn't want him to be subjected to any of the conflict of interest rules. All the power, all the money, none of the accountability. After 9 years of this NDP Liberal government, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, and time is up for Carbon Tax Carney and this Prime Minister. Why don't they just call a carbon tax election?
Hey, man. We might see it after question period.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Another week, another tired line from the Conservatives. When it comes to Canadians who disagree with their vision of the country, instead of allowing for that disagreement to happen, they attack them personally and try to bring them down. We have seen this time and time again from Conservatives, whether it's the news media like CBC or CTV, or whether it's eminent Canadians who give of themselves. The Conservatives only have one objective, and that's to tear down Canadians who don't share their beliefs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Leeds Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
It's no surprise that that member wants to deflect from her Prime Minister, who was twice found guilty of breaking ethics laws himself, and that's why he's trying to protect his buddy Carbon Tax Carney from the ethical rules that would, of course, call into question this $10 billion of Canadians' pensions that they want to let him get his hands on in exchange for what?
I'm excited to see Rhonda DeBlonda in the room. How you doing, sister? Hope the move went well.
Advice that he's going to give them from Bay Street, that everyone on Main Street can just eat cake when they can't afford any more of his rising carbon tax. It's been 9 years of their failed NDP Liberal policies. Canadians are out of money. They're out of time. When can we have an election?
Before the Honourable Minister takes her spot, I did hear a comment out of turn. I think it was from a minister. I couldn't figure out who it is, but I'll ask members to please, again, don't take the floor unless recognized by the chair. The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And again, what we see from the Conservative members of Parliament is that they just can't handle being criticized. It's the same way they treat the media. When the media ask them tough questions about what they are putting forward in terms of their agenda for Canadians, what do? They attack them. This is what they do with the media. This is what they do with eminent Canadians. This is what they do with any Canadian who doesn't share the vision for Canada. Mr. Speaker, we should be talking up Canada. We should be talking up Canadians instead of talking them down like the Conservatives.
Yeah, good answer.
The Honourable Member from Calgary Nose Hill.
Mr. Speaker, first the Liberals announced that Mark Carney, the chair of Brookfield, a $1 trillion corporation whose interests span the entire federal government, would be setting Canada's economic policy. Then news broke that Brookfield had been lobbying for a federally funded multi-billion-dollar investment fund that they would manage. Then, over this past weekend, Mark Carney sent out a fundraising email blast via the Liberal Party's donation list. Interesting. Did the Liberals or Brookfield clear any of this with the lobbying commissioner?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Again, Mr. Speaker, what we see from the Conservatives is when there are Canadians that don't share their vision of Canada, they talk them down. They try.
Invite the Honourable Minister to I'm going to ask members.
Come on.
Please. Again, do not take the floor until they're recognized by the chair. The Honourable Leader of the Government from the House of Commons from the top.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's okay. I understand this response makes them uncomfortable because they know it's true, Mr. Speaker. Right. But when it comes to Canadians who don't share their vision of Canada, what do Conservative members of Parliament do? They talk them down. They try to bring them down. They don't like having people push against their agenda. They don't like it when they're asked tough questions, or when smart, intelligent people don't share their vision of Canada, they try to take them down instead of having that debate. Thank you.
That's right. Good answer.
That's right. Come on, dude.
Isn't Chrystia Freeland the worst? Like, she just is.
Why the Liberals didn't clear Carney with the lobbying commissioner.
Ooh. They thought the Conservatives wouldn't catch on to it, eh?
Mr. Speaker, Canada is known everywhere in the world as being absolutely one of the best jurisdictions to manage plug supply, and that is something that we are absolutely committed to continuing. I think that casting aspersions and trying to manufacture things is something we're used to.
Whoa, hold on a second.
On the other side.
With communities, with First Nations leaders, with Indigenous organizations to ensure that people have access.
Sorry, guys. I wasn't really paying attention to what I was watching. We're changing it up. We're going to this. Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre, and yes, I will say it with complete confidence, will be Canada's next great Prime Minister.
Hey gang, what's up? Just Ehren right here, Question Period Canada. You recognize Larry Brock, the man making the very bold prediction from the intro? He's a lot to watch, guys, all the time, on fire in committee. These are some of the videos that we focus on. This committee stuff, guys, like and subscribe. You'll enjoy it. You probably don't see this side of politics very often. We cover it here. Let's take a closer look at Larry Brock. Point of order. It gets nuts in committee every time. We've got a couple of villains that make appearances in this one. Let's take a look. Larry Brock is a man on fire.
Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre, and yes, I will say it with complete confidence, will be Canada's next great Prime Minister. I start by sharing the initial commentary from my colleague, Mr. Keurig. Just how disappointed that he was to hear the commentary from Ms. Khalid in terms of the framing of her motion, and how shocked she was and how disturbed she was. You know, the hypocrisy from that member, and quite frankly the entire Liberal bench on these two issues is just astounding. The lengths they will go to try to change the channel on where public opinion is with the Liberal Party of Canada and their leader, Justin Trudeau. It really speaks to how low they have sunk and the attempts that they will do and try to fearmonger, to frighten and scare Canadians. Pretty much the entire playbook of the Liberal Party of Canada since Justin Trudeau became leader of the party, literally in 2013. It was all about scaremongering. Even before 2013, one can make the argument, going back to the 2004 and 2006 election under PM Martin and Chrétien, the lengths by which they will go to try to paint any leader of the Conservative Party of Canada as a boogeyman, and that Canadians ought to be fearful that there is somehow a hidden agenda, that they will say one thing and quite frankly do another, which really is the playbook of Justin Trudeau and has been since he formed government in 2015. But it's more pronounced now because, let's face it, they're down 20 plus points in the polls. They have been down for well over a year.
Chair.
Go ahead on your point of order.
Just talking about relevance, I'd encourage the member to come back to the topic at hand.
Go ahead,
And
Mr.
relevance
Brock.
is very subjective, as I telegraphed to the party. My speaking remarks are at least 2 hours long. So I will get to relevant points of Ms. Khalid's motion in due course.
Mr. Brock has the floor. Go ahead, Mr. Brock. And I'm not going to accept any interruptions here. We've talked about this many times. Relevance is subjective. Mr. Brock will get to his points and make his points in an appropriate manner, and I don't want any interruptions unless it's related to the actual standing orders, and you can cite those. Go ahead, Mr. Brock.
So, gang, that's Ikra Khalid. She's an MP, Liberal MP, always a thorn in the side of these committee meetings. Anyhow, here's a very quick look at her, but then we're going to get back to Larry Brock, because these committee meetings, I do want you to like and subscribe. They're always wild, guys. People don't see this side of Canadian politics. It's fun in a way.
A good part of the country agrees. Now, don't bring me into this debate with these frivolous points of order on tone, particularly when you take issue with the word Mr. Barrett used, and then use it yourself to describe his actions, thereby reinforcing the point it is accurate. Mr. Barrett, you have the floor.
Chair?
Is it a point of order, Ms. Khalid?
Yes, Chair. Again, on the same point of order on decorum,
He
I
ruled
would
on it.
appreciate
He ruled on
if the
it.
chair, I'm talking about a different person.
Thank you, Brent. That's more than generous, brother. Thank you so much. I'll type you a message here. Hang on to your money, everybody. Like, it's tough times in Canada. If you have a bunch, Brent, thank you. Oh my goodness.
And now, if the chair himself could be a little bit more nonpartisan in how he conducts
Okay,
our
Ms. Khalid, don't bring me into your bun fights, and I will be nonpartisan and conduct the meeting. You're going to continue to disrupt opposition members from asking questions, then I will get involved and make a ruling, as is my job. I'm not just a potted plant up here that's going to watch the clock. But as you get more political and try to cut opposition members from asking legitimate committee questions, I will reinforce their rights as members to ask it. Mr. Barrett, you have the floor.
Our leader had been elected, and there has been a consistent drive to water down and eliminate that Liberal support. And it's obviously must be extremely disappointing to many longstanding members of the Liberal Party of Canada. It's not surprising that we have a number of ministers who've decided not to run for re-election. We have a number of MPs deciding not to run for re-election. There's a phrase that I'm not going to use, but it's clear that they too look at the polls and they know that public opinion is changing. It's changing for a number of reasons, Mr. Chair. There's always, and always has been, a shelf life for any political party. That applies to the Liberal Party, that applies to the Conservative Party. People get tired of being promised a number of things pre-election merely to buy a vote, and then to be profoundly disappointed when the Prime Minister of the day does not deliver. And that's precisely what's happening with Justin Trudeau. I'm sure he and the Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, and the entire Finance Department, if not the entire Liberal bench, thought that the spring budget would finally end some negativity towards their economic policies, that they were going to make it fairer for a number of generations, that it wasn't strictly about the middle class. Now it's fairness for multiple generations. But what are we seeing in the budget? We're seeing the same worn-out talking points that Justin Trudeau promised Canadians in 2015 and completely has not delivered on, particularly in the area, in my view, of public safety. And I'm going to get to relevant points in due course. But it's just indicative, emblematic of why.
Again, I don't mean to interrupt, but TaylorMade, that's wild. Be careful, like that's a lot of money. Like, thank you so much. That's so generous. I don't even know what to say. These things have happened a couple of times over the last couple nights where people are being generous. I don't even know what to say. I'm just here to show videos. Like, I don't think anybody. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It will be very well spent. Back to the show. Thank you.
This party and its members are just so desperate to find something other than to take a look at their track record. The budget has fallen flat on its face. One could have made the argument that the Prime Minister was going to drop the writ 2 or 3 weeks ago with his cross-country tour and all his ministers following along and delivering all these little goodies as to what they can expect from the budget. But nothing has moved the channel because Canadians are wise and Canadians are intelligent. And they have finally realized that this Prime Minister, who they thought was going to conduct governance so much more differently. Let's all remember his famous words in 2015, how he would do politics different, that his administration would be known as the most transparent, accountable, and responsible government this country has ever seen. But then you take a look at everything that has transpired. Their non-willingness to provide documents at committee, instructing their members to filibuster when it comes to exposing elements of corruption and unethical behavior. The list goes on and on and on. I could spend hours doing a deep dive, just taking a look at the number of scandals that has rocked Justin Trudeau and members of his cabinet, members of his backbench, literally since 2015. Canadians are wise individuals, Mr. Chair, and they remember these things. So with all the good efforts that the Liberal members of this committee are trying to do now, trying to scare Canadians and fearmonger, in my view, is going to fall flat on its face. Let's take, for instance, this whole concept of the scariness of the notwithstanding clause. The notwithstanding clause, surprise, surprise, introduced by Justin's father himself, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, well over 40 years ago. And that notwithstanding clause in the last 40 plus years has not been amended. It has been in the books for a very long time. And while no federal government has exercised its use, does not necessarily mean, in fact, I'll say definitively, does not mean that it's inappropriate to use it in the future. We know that some provincial premiers have used it. You know, and where was the backlash from Justin Trudeau? Well, I guess there was a little bit of backlash. He talked a good game, but he didn't do anything about it. When Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, talked about it, when the Premier of Quebec talked about it, this is something that is law in this country. And for all the non-lawyers on the Liberal bench, I invite them all to take the time, it'll take you less than 2 minutes, to actually read Section 33 of the Charter. That when used clearly, and I'm just paraphrasing it, when used, it's not permanent. It's reviewable at 5 years. So when we take a look at the comments recently made by our leader, these are comments, Mr. Chair, that have not changed or been altered in any which way from the first moment that he talked about the applicable use of the notwithstanding clause. The notwithstanding clause, despite the best efforts of Ms. Khalid to try to open up the floodgates and widen the potential abuse of the notwithstanding clause to scare Canadians to be fearful of the use of that clause, because now it might be applied to reproductive rights, is an absolute joke. And it's offensive, because she knows full well, as does every member of that Liberal bench, where the Conservative Party of Canada stands on that issue. Dead stop. No further discussion needed. But that won't stop the Liberals. That will not stop them. They will continue to scare Canadians into believing that Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre, and yes, I will say it with complete confidence, will be Canada's next great Prime Minister.
So, gang, what do you think? Larry Brock, right? He's fun to watch for sure. Khalid is an issue all the time in these committee meetings. You've got to come and join the channel, not join the channel, but subscribe, like, share, get notified, all that fun stuff. We do.
With that, I will give my last minute to Mr. Brock. Thank you.
145, Mr. Brock.
Mr. Anderson, you are a self-admitted liar. You lack any credibility whatsoever. It really begs the question, how much did Minister Boissonnault pay you for your silence?
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
Oh, yeah.
MP Brock is still looking for this mysterious Randy. Where is the
Mr.
other
Lloyd, for 5
Randy?
minutes. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Anderson, you expect this committee to believe that you autocorrected at least 8 times. We have text message evidence that you used the term Randy at least 8 times. And you expect us to believe that you autocorrected 8 times without correcting yourself even once?
That is the truth, yes.
Now, do you think that the Gowie Group would be wondering to themselves who this Randy fellow is if there was no Randy involved in your company? You're sending all these text messages referencing a Randy. Why didn't the Gowie Group ever ask who's this Randy person that we're dealing with if it was an autocorrect?
The Gowie Group has, in our entire relation from I think it was, we started communicating in August of 2022, right up until just this past Friday with the Gowie Group. They were not involved with any communication or linkage to Randy Boissonnault.
And yet it was their understanding that this Randy Boissonnault was a public official. Is this Randy, this other Randy that you're referencing, the person you won't name, are they a public official?
They are not, no.
Okay. Now, you've already admitted to this committee, to the country, that you lied to Global News when you told them that there was a Randy who was the head of logistics. And you expect this committee to believe that you had 8 autocorrects that went uncorrected? Why should we believe you now?
I'm a private citizen. I have nothing to hide or protect. I consider Randy Boissonnault a friend, a colleague of mine that I had met a handful of times. We've never hung out publicly. If Randy Boissonnault was involved, I would tell you. He has not been involved.
Randy's going to get away with it. That's the thing. Randy's getting away with it. Oh, Lord.
In September.
And yet we've been here for 3 months. You could have put this to rest, as my colleague said, quite easily 3 months ago and told us it was an autocorrect. This turmoil that you speak of, that you have gone through, that you do not want to put this unnamed individual through, is entirely a creation of your obfuscation of the facts of your hiding the identity of this person. If you had said the name of this person a couple of months ago, there would have been no turmoil. So why did you hide this? You said on the phone when you got the call from Global News saying, who's the other Randy? You panicked. What would you have had to panic about if you had nothing to hide? You just said you had nothing to hide. You would tell us. Why didn't you tell Global News then the truth? What did you have to hide? Why did you panic?
Mr. Chairman, it wasn't about panicking about Global News. I had been told and contacted by Global News previously that Global News was working on a story in relation to ongoing litigation with Global Health Imports, that the linkage that between Minister Boissonnault, that he was still listed as a partner within the Alberta filings, that it had not been removed, but it was removed from the federal filings. And based on the litigation that was going on with the Gowie Group, on our advice of counsel, we were instructed not to speak to them.
You panicked, but you could have just easily given the media an easy answer. It's not Randy Boissonnault. It's not anyone named Randy. In fact, it's this other person. But you led us on this merry chase for 3 months, not merry for yourself, unfortunately, but you're the cause of your own misfortune here, sir. With that, I will give my last minute to Mr. Brock. Thank you.
Smash the like and give us a subscription. We love making these videos. They're wild. Let's get back to the show.
Thank you.
145, Mr. Brock.
Mr. Anderson, you are a self-admitted liar. You lack any credibility whatsoever. It really begs the question, how much did Minister Boissonnault pay you for your silence?
Mr. Chairman,
How much did he pay you?
I have not had no communication with Minister Boissonnault.
You've only had one other partner in your entire operation with GHI and GHS. You've confirmed that is Randy Boissonnault. The word partner and all of these email exchanges was never auto-corrected, was it? Was it?
There was no email communication.
I'm talking text messages. The word partner in text messages was never auto-corrected, was it?
It was not referring to Randy Boissonnault.
You've had unusual contract wins. You've had a half a dozen lawsuits, nearly $8 million in court-ordered debts, civil allegations of fraud, a fire 16 days after at a warehouse by 3 arsonists. Yesterday, we learned you got into business with a Dominican drug dealer. Nobody believes you. No one at this committee believes you. Canadians don't believe you. Fess up. The gig is up. The only other Randy that was auto-corrected, according to you, 9 times was, in fact, Minister Randy Boissonnault. Admit it.
Mr. Chairman, it was not Randy Boissonnault.
Who was it?
As I have said at my opening statement, I am happy to provide the individual's name in question.
Not good enough. Gowie's understanding, according to their communications with you.
Mr. Nakvi, Mr. Brock, time's up. Mr. Nakvi for 5. Go ahead. And then I'm going to have 2 and 2 left, and then we'll call it a day.
Thank you very much, Chair. Appreciate the time.
Smash the like and give us a subscription. We love making these videos. They're wild. Let's get back to the show.
Okay, thank you. I've got time for 2 and 2. I haven't got anybody on the... Mr. Brock, am I going to you? Okay. Then I'm going to need to know who I'm going to, Mr. Nakvi, after that for 2 minutes.
Mr. Anderson, it's time to stop playing games, and it's time for your come to Jesus moment, and to be honest. It was very difficult for you to admit that you lied to Global News. You panicked. Don't know why you would panic at that earliest opportunity, other than to suggest you were protecting your friend, Randy Boissonnault, Minister Randy Boissonnault. At all material times, pursuant to emails and other documentation reviewed by Global News that you lied to, it was always Gowie's understanding that when you referenced Randy, that it was in reference to Minister Boissonnault. You had told Gowie on a number of occasions that Randy Boissonnault was a partner in GHI and a public official. This was confirmed by Gowie to Global News. Now, clearly, you're not going to say that they are lying because this is information that Gowie received from you. So the only one that's lying right now is you. And I'm trying to understand why you insist on continuing to lie to protect Minister Boissonnault, other than some perhaps financial arrangement between the two of you. That $500,000 that you pocketed, you had no intention of delivering the goods. You gave back, what, $10,000 of that? You've never paid it back, have you? That $500,000. Answer the question. Did you pay it back?
You're mistaken when you say.
Did you pay it back?
You're
Yes or
mistaken
no?
when you say it's not a yes or no answer.
Okay, then I'll move on. How much of that $500,000 went to Randy Boissonnault?
Zero.
Zero. Yes. So the autocorrect, whose name were you trying to say that either your Apple device or your Samsung device was changing to Randy? Who were you trying to say that was a partner?
You were referring to an individual that worked in our office.
No, sir. No. You
office?
referenced a partner.
Okay.
You've identified already you only had one partner in your lifetime with GHI. That is Boissonnault. Who were you trying to say? Who was the other partner named Randy?
Quickly, Mr. Anderson, if you can.
It was not Randy Boissonnault.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brock.
Barrett was just trying not to crack up. I don't know if you saw that, but Barrett's face was cracking. Pretty funny.
I want is an apology for putting my safety and
God,
security in jeopardy by a member of this committee. That is all I am asking. And I can tell you how much hate I have received on social media. I can read it into the record, how many emails I have received, how many phone calls, people calling me and telling me that because a member feels that I turned my back to him. And I am just trying to look out for myself, Chair. I am trying to look out for my safety. No, Chair, you know, you have talked over me and over me and over me, and all I am looking for is an apology, and I am looking for a deletion of that tweet. That is all I am asking for, Chair.
So can I ask, why are we?
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics. Hey gang, what's up? Just Ehren right here. Question period Canada. You recognize Ikra Khalid from the introduction. She's a troublemaker all the time in these committee meetings. Seems this time she's the one offended by Larry Brock's comment last week. This committee meeting, guys, these committee meetings, come and join us. These are nuts. Let's take a peek at Ikra Khalid fighting the world.
Take the information. I am going to go back and discuss this with the clerk and come back with a later ruling. So that's what I'm prepared to do at this point. Okay, so thank you for raising that, Mr. Baines. So
I'm sorry, just seeking clarification, Chair.
Yep.
What does that mean?
It means I'm going to come back with a ruling on the question of privilege once I look at all of the information that's been presented by Mr. Baines, other information as it relates to what's in the book, and some of the discussion that went on in the past.
Do you mean in a few minutes?
He has to come back now.
And so just for clarity as well, that it's not me that is going to determine whether there's a
Yeah, so guys, smash the like, why not? Just hit it. I've got hours of this stuff. We can play it all night long. The marathon, that wasn't an exaggeration. We can do that. Larry Brock is a busy guy.
question of privilege here. It's only the speaker that can decide that. What will happen once I come back and determine whether, in fact, I believe that a question of privilege is necessitated here, is that there would be a motion of the committee to proceed and prepare this for the Speaker of the House. So that's how the process would work, okay? So at this point, I am not prepared to make a ruling. I'm going to go back and deliberate with the clerk, and I will come back to the committee, not within the time period that's prescribed here, but at a later date as well. So if you have a point of order, go ahead, Ms. Khalid.
Thanks, Chair. My understanding from the Green Book and from our standing orders is that the role of the chair in such instances is to determine whether the matter raised does in fact touch on privilege and is not a point of order, a grievance, or a matter of debate. If the chair is of the opinion that the member's interjection deals with a point of order, a grievance, or a matter of debate, or that the incident is within the powers of the committee to deal with, the chair will rule accordingly, giving reasons. The committee cannot then consider the matter further as a question of privilege. Should a member disagree with the chair's decision, the member can appeal the decision to the committee, like, for example, moving a motion or sustaining the decision of the chair, for example. The committee can then sustain that decision. So I really would encourage that we can come to a conclusion on this sooner rather than later, Chair, as is the precedent set by previous chairs.
Okay, I appreciate that. I appreciate the information that you have provided, but it's also my understanding, Ms. Khalid, and I've confirmed this, that I can take my time to deliberate on this issue, and that is what I am prepared to do, given the seriousness of what Mr. Baines has brought up. So I don't have to make a decision right away. That's very clear to me, and I'm not prepared to make a decision at this point. I'm going to come back to the committee in due course after I consult with the clerk, and as I indicated earlier, that will not be today. So that's my decision.
Mr. Chair, point of order.
On a point of order, go ahead.
I would ask you to consult with the clerk as to whether you have the right to go away and make a decision on this. This, according to the Green Book, has to be made as a decision today so that Mr. Baines can or will not be able to move a motion.
Mr. Rock, Mr. Fisher has the floor.
Based on what?
I am pretty sure that I've already looked into this, and I am certain that no decision has to be made today, that I can actually come back to the committee. I'm certain of that, Mr. Fisher. So go on the same point of order. Go ahead, Ms. Khalid.
If we can just perhaps have a decision as to whether or not this matter presented to you is a matter of privilege or not, and then you can rule on it at a later time.
Well, herein lies the difficulty. As I explained earlier, I am not sure whether it actually constitutes a matter of privilege. And I think it's unfair of that expectation to be placed on me. When we deal with questions of privilege in the House, oftentimes the Speaker will bring information back, will go back and seek information either by the clerk or the law clerks in determining whether it's a question of privilege or not. So if you're asking me to make a decision today, I think first and foremost, I don't have to make that decision. Secondly, I can go back and consult with the clerk and others on whether, in fact, I believe this is a question of privilege. If I do believe that, then I come back to the committee, I make that decision, and the committee can move forward in a proper manner. If I decide that it's not a question of privilege, then the committee can move back in a proper format and matter. I am not prepared at this point, nor do I believe I have to be prepared to decide on the question of privilege that Mr. Baines has raised. Go ahead, Mr. Fisher.
Thank you, Chair, and you are right. You aren't asked to judge whether this is a point of privilege. You're not asked to come back at a later date to determine whether this is a point of privilege. You are, however,
for the purposes
to determine today whether it touches on privilege. That's all the chair's role is whether this touches on
and
privilege.
I think I've already explained myself in that regard. I realize exactly what you're saying is what I realize and what I understand. If I do determine, and I'm not prepared to deal with that today or determine that today, given the seriousness of the nature of what Mr. Baines has brought up, then I can come back and say, in my view, at a later point, whether I do or don't believe this touches on a question of privilege, and then it'll be up to the committee to determine what it wants to do at that point, whether it wants to raise it to the House and then eventually to the Speaker for him to determine. I understand my responsibility. As much as I understand my responsibility and the option that I'm choosing, given the seriousness of this nature, to not determine at this point whether it raises a question of privilege or not. I have to go back. I'm going to consult with the clerks I'm going to consult with parliamentary law clerks and then come back and give my determination at that point. Go ahead, Mr. Kirk, on a point of order.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And just to ensure that there is absolute clarity, when it comes to Chapter 20, subheading Questions of Privilege in Committee, it does not, in fact, say that a ruling is required today. So just so that those watching and whatnot, for the edification of all committee members, the Bosch and Gagnon is very clear that there is not a time limit, although, of course, the reasonable expectation is expeditiously, and I think we all appreciate that. But I would conclude with this and simply saying I find that it's troubling that the governing party would push for a decision which certainly I think underlies motives that seem to be nothing more than pure political.
Thank you, Mr. Kirk. I'm quite clear on the fact that no decision has to be made today, and that the chair can take his time or her time to render a decision to the committee. On the same point of order, go ahead, Ms. Khalid.
Thank you, Chair. Page 623 of the book. Proceedings of the House are based on a long-standing tradition of respect for the integrity of all members. Thus, the use of offensive, provocative, or threatening language in the House is strictly prohibited. Personal attacks, insults, and obscenities are not in order. And I think
Tailor-made, thank you so much. That is so generous. Be careful, thank you, that's good. I seriously appreciate it, but oh my God, I'm blushing again. I don't know what to say. Thank you.
Based on what I've heard today, that is exactly rules that have been broken.
Okay, thank
so,
you.
Chair,
Thank you, Mr. Barrett.
I challenge your ruling.
I haven't. I made a. Hold on a sec. My ruling is that I'm going to come back to the committee, which I think is the prudent and pragmatic thing to do. You're challenging my ruling on coming back to the committee so that I can look at this in a fair manner and make a proper decision. Is that what you're challenging me on, Ms. Khalid? Seriously?
I am challenging the integrity and what decisions have been made, how much abuse members of this committee have taken.
Well, that's
subject
to your opinion. And I think
it is not subject to opinion, Chair. That's the whole point of it.
It is.
That is what the Green Book, that is what our standing orders are telling you, Chair, to do.
I'm not determining whether you
Chair,
have.
You are under obligation to make sure
I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to argue with you on this. There is no decision to challenge, because the decision that I'm dealing with is on the question of privilege, and I have told the committee that I'm taking this matter seriously, and that I'm going to come back to the committee with a determination whether I think, after I look at all of the evidence, including some of the things that the accusations that have been made, I think it's fair and prudent on my part to do that. And so I don't think you have anything to challenge, Ms. Khalid, to be frank. So I'm going to come back to the committee. That's my decision.
Just can I make one more point of order, Mr. Chair?
One more point of order.
So you're going to go away and come back to determine whether you feel that this touches on privilege.
Which is my responsibility, whether in fact I think Mr. Baines has a valid point and that his privileges were in fact violated. And then I make a recommendation to the committee, and then it's up to the committee to determine whether in fact they're going to move forward with this and bring this to the House in front of the Speaker for the ultimate determination. That's how the process works. And so I'm prepared to do that, not today, but at the earliest opportunity, which will give me some time to consult with the clerks, the law clerks, to determine whether in fact this touches on parliamentary privilege. On Mr. Baines.
Just on this, can you then set a timeline, make a determination?
At the earliest opportunity. I'm not sure that the Speaker even sets a timeline when he deals with questions of privilege. Let me do my work. Let me consult with the clerks and then I'll come back, and the law clerks, and then I'll come back and make a decision. So that could be by Thursday at the earliest. I'm taking this matter seriously, and I'm going to deal with it in the seriousness in which it's raised. So, okay? Thank you. Hang on a sec.
One and 13. Or I have another point of order.
Go ahead on your point of order, Ms. Khalid, please.
Thank you. And my point of order refers specifically to Chapter 13 of the House of Commons Procedure and Practice, 3rd edition, on the Standing Order number 18, on Standing Order 116 sub 1. And it is in relation to actions that Mr. Brock on this committee took against me last week in putting out a public statement that put myself in jeopardy, that created a lot of negative angst towards me, and I believe that it violates the standing orders that have been laid out with respect to how parliamentarians are supposed to conduct themselves in the House and in the committee. This is not the first time this has been done, and I would hope that this is the last time that it is done, and I'm more than happy, Chair, to start reading to you.
Yeah, Ms. Khalid, I'm gonna stop you there because I'm not sure whether was it related to committee business?
Indeed, it was, Chair. It was very much related to committee business, where Mr. Brock filibustered.
Point of order.
Was it in the meeting itself?
Yes, it
That's
was,
what I have
indeed.
to be clear.
Point of order.
Go ahead on your point of order, Mr. Kirk.
So I believe that
I
it's
still
not
have
a
the
point of
floor, Mr.
order
Chair.
that was raised, but rather, Mr. Chair, I would encourage you to follow the speaking list, because that certainly sounds like a substantive item of debate. And if Ms. Khalid wants to move a motion accordingly,
So Ms. Khalid,
she is welcome to. But Mr. Barrett has
she did bring up a point of order. So on your point of order, Ms. Khalid.
I haven't finished speaking to my point of order, if that's okay.
They have what?
I have not finished speaking to my point of order.
Okay, so
I would like to outline exactly what happened that helped violate the rules that I have pointed out, which is Standing Order number 18, Standing Order 116.
If you feel that way, would you
sub
not want to raise a point of privilege then, similar to what Mr.
I am
Baines
raising
did?
a point of order because clearly, Chair, you're going to take a while to rule on any points of privilege. Sure. You know what? In that case, I would be more than happy to do a point of privilege in that case then.
Okay. We have another question of privilege being brought up by Ms. Khalid. So if you want to go ahead, Ms. Khalid, on your point of privilege.
Absolutely, Chair. Last week, which was May 21st, I believe, during committee, Mr. Brock put out a tweet that said, disrespect in ethics committee, ! The level of disrespect from Ikra Khalid during committee is beyond words. Her back is literally turned towards committee members, disgraceful. Now, my understanding of the orders, the standing orders, and the rules for House procedure is that this tweet violates my privilege, Chair, and I will show you exactly how. So I will read to you some of the emails that I have received. I will talk to you about some of the phone calls that I have received. No, please don't interrupt my privilege here.
Point of order, Chair. Just bear with me here. I'm going to suspend for a minute. Okay? Thank you. When we left off, I appreciate the patience of everyone. We were on Ms. Khalid's question of privilege. I'm going to ask her to continue, but I'm also going to ask, similarly to what I asked of Mr. Baines, I want this, the question of privilege should be as succinct as it needs to be in relation to the privileges of the member being violated. Now, I know, Ms. Khalid, that you mentioned something about a Twitter post from last week that occurred. I'm not, I'm going to say this with respect, that I'm not interested in becoming the Twitter police, okay? No.
Chair, you know what point?
But let me explain. If you have an issue with the actions of a member that you feel violated your privilege, then I'm asking you to state specifically where that violation occurred. The outside circumstances or the opinions of others does not matter to this committee. What matters is whether a member feels like their privileges have been violated. I'm also going to remind members as well, and I'm reminding you, Ms. Khalid, that anything that happens outside of this committee, whether it's a social media post or otherwise, is a matter that can be taken up by the Speaker of the House of Commons. And we've seen in the past where points of orders or questions of privileges have been raised in the House of Commons, and the Speaker has, in some circumstances, ruled on that. So any form of litigation related to this, any Twitter messages, because look, frankly, I'm going to speak frankly to the committee. I mean, we can go down a very deep rabbit hole on the issue of
Point of order, Chair. I'm not sure why you're litigating this matter. I would like to speak for what I have experienced based on the actions of committee members.
So explain the actions.
So I am
the point I'm making,
trying to do that, Chair. But
but I'm not. But I don't, Ms. Khalid, respectfully, I don't want to be the Twitter police. I don't want to be a determining factor or the determinant of what's appropriate or what's not. We can do that in relation to what a member's action is, but I'm not interested in some numbered Twitter feed of what they're saying.
That's what I'm trying to speak to, Chair. That is exactly what I'm trying to speak to.
So I'm going to allow you to continue with that expectation. So
Chair,
go ahead.
all I want is an apology for...
Listen to her. Oh my God, and she expects to get what she wants. She is poison.
Putting my safety and security in jeopardy by a member of this committee. That is all I am asking. And I can tell you how much hate I have received on social media. I can read it into the record, how many emails I have received, how many phone calls, people calling me and telling me that I'm a fucking cunt because a member feels that I turned my back to him. And I am just trying to look out for myself, Chair. I am trying to look out for my safety. No, Chair, you have talked over me and over me and over me, and all I am looking for is an apology, and I am looking for a deletion of that tweet. That is all I am asking for, Chair.
So can I ask, why are we utilizing committee time? If you have a problem with what Mr. Brock said,
Chair,
you can approach Mr.
Respectfully,
Brock.
Chair, I don't believe that is possible. When the actions that are highlighted on social media during committee by members have severe consequences for somebody like myself. I'm sorry, Chair. I am not a terrorist. I am not a cunt. I am not the 100 bazillion things that I get called on a daily basis because my colleagues put me in that position, Chair. Can you please stop cutting me off?
Point of order, Chair.
I am
asking
trying,
for some decorum.
I am trying very hard, Chair,
Point of order, Chair.
to get my viewpoint across here, to raise a very severe
Just hang on,
concern.
Michael. I hear your point of order. So, Ms. Khalid, I'm going to ask.
Why am I the only person in this?
Right there, just right there, Barrett had to say point of order like 5 times, and she still hasn't stopped.
This room that keeps getting cut off.
Point of order, Chair.
I'm not. He's got a point of order. I'm going to go to
6.
I'm going to go to Mr. Barrett on a point of order, similarly to what I do with you when you raise a point of order. Okay, and I'm going to ask, for the sake of the interpretation, that we not cut each other off. Okay, Mr. Barrett, on your point of order, please.
Chair.
Go ahead.
The member is citing correspondence and calls that are not from a member of this committee and that were not solicited or invited by a member of this committee.
Mr.
Chair,
Mr.
Chair, no,
Mr.
Chair,
Mr.
Chair.
Barrett.
It is.
I hear your point, sir.
From
So this is
tweet
again
from that
gratuitous.
member
This has
while
nothing
the
to
committee
do.
was
This has
still
nothing to
occurring.
do
No, Chair.
with my colleague. This has nothing to do with my
Mr. Barrett.
Him off too, Chair.
I
This has
am.
nothing to do with my
But
colleague.
I can't have
has
screaming
nothing to do with
across the
Michael.
table. I can't have screaming across the table for the sake.
Very
For the
gender
sake.
biased statement to make.
Well,
Chair,
I
Mr.
can't
Fisher
have
and Ms.
loud
Khalid both
voices.
interrupted me while I was on a point of order.
okay, just hang on a sec. Okay, Mr. Just hang on with your thoughts there, Mr. Barrett.
What do you think, gang? Point of order, Mr. Chair. What is going on in these committee meetings? We do get the best of the best. Larry Brock, Garnet Genu, Rick Perkins, Michael Chong, Michael Cooper, Shannon Stubbs, Michael Barrett, with Stephanie Kusi. The list goes on and on. They're always super interesting. Something else that's super interesting is the live show that we cover. Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics. Oh, yeah.
Let me be very clear. My principal concern when it comes to the illegal occupation and the illegal blockades is the economic harm that was
Let me
done
be
to
very
Canada.
clear, Minister Freeland. Your words several times in the House referred to terrorism funding and money laundering. Are you saying you didn't use those words?
Hey gang, what's up? Just Ehren right here, Question Period Canada. We went into the archives for this video. This is MP Larry Brock, big-time prosecutor, taking on Chrystia Freeland, questioning why the Declaration of the Emergency Act was invoked. And Chrystia Freeland is a tough nut on the stand. She's a hostile witness, to describe it accurately. She and Larry Brock do not like each other, but Larry Brock is a real lawyer, a lot of experience prosecuting, and he doesn't let Chrystia Freeland off the hook. However, she resists Larry Brock. Let's take a look at the video. It's very interesting. Let's jump into it. Chrystia Freeland, Larry Brock, nothing quite like it. The Emergencies Act. They did declare that that was a violation of the law. Let's take a look. Let's take a listen. It's interesting to catch up on how this all went down.
Minister Freeland, you'll agree with me that the state-owned, taxpayer-funded Canadian Broadcasting Corporation reported on February the 10th, 2022, that the GoFundMe donations to the convoy protest came from donors located outside of Canada. You'd agree with that?
I don't have the report in front of me, and I haven't memorized all CBC reports, but I'm prepared to believe you.
In fact, they stated that the donations came from America, United Kingdom, France, Germany, Australia, New Zealand, and the Netherlands. You'd also accept that as fact?
I don't see the article before me, but you say that's what it says.
They even claimed that the convoy might be Russian-funded. Do you recall that?
Again, you're reading from the article.
Yes. On March 21st, 2002, the CBC, without any explanation, without apology, without any clarity, retracted their story regarding the funding of the protest. You were aware of that?
Again, I'm not speaking for the CBC. I'm speaking for
I'm not
the
asking
Ministry
you to
of
speak
Finance.
for the CBC. I'm asking, were you informed that the CBC retracted the story, the false story, about foreign funding donations to the convoy?
Again, Mr. Brock, I don't believe that the CBC is being interrogated here. I believe it's the government of
Just
Canada.
answer the question, Minister Freeland. Were you aware, yes or no? It's a simple question.
I don't have the article before me, and I'm not here to answer questions about the CBC and
The
its
Deputy
reporting.
Prime Minister, the most senior cabinet minister, is not prepared to accept whether or not the CBC retracted a false story?
I don't speak for the CBC, sir.
You, as the most senior cabinet minister and the deputy prime minister, relied upon that initial story from the CBC and shared your concerns with Canadians regarding terrorism funding and money laundering. Your words, correct?
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to take the chance now to offer you an opportunity to like, subscribe, share, get notified, leave a comment, please. I love the comments. We watch all these amazing Canadian federal political videos. We try to learn and share all of that with you. My name's Ehren, Question Period Canada. So yeah, like, share.
Rika Walsh with the Globe and Mail. You just laid out the tough economic times that Canadians are facing. You say you're seized with the issue. Did you consider that backdrop when you decided to take an $80,000 free vacation?
As many Canadians did, I stayed with friends over the holidays.
Many Canadians don't have access to $90,000 free vacation. So can you just explain a bit more the thinking as to why you take these vacations and how you think Canadians receive them?
Like many Canadians did, I stayed with family friends over the holidays.
Years of this NDP Liberal government, it's clear the Prime Minister is not worth the cost. He gave us 3 different versions of his Jamaican vacation. First, he claimed he was paying all the expenses for his family's stay. Secondly, he claimed he was staying at no cost at a location owned by a family friend. And then he claimed that he and his family stayed with friends. Now, all 3 different versions cannot be accurate at the same time. Which version did he tell the Ethics Commissioner?
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister and his family took a Christmas vacation. Before the trip, the Office of the Ethics Commissioner was consulted on the details to ensure the rules were followed. The Prime Minister's family then proceeded with the trip, and all the rules were followed.
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
Oh, yeah.
Hey gang, what's up? Just Ehren right here, Canadian Looney. Do you ever get a free vacation? It would seem like our Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is taking free vacations, lying about it, being dishonest, misleading, distracting, dividing, all of his tricks. Larry Brock calls him out in committee, calls him out there as well on the House of Commons floor in question period. But it's interesting to see the way that the Liberal backbenchers, Ikra Khalid, Pam Damoff, the points of order they put up. Mike Barrett's in this one too. This is a smorgasbord of MPs that do go at it in committee. Let's take a look. Larry Brock calls Trudeau what he really is. Let's take a look.
The motion has been moved. I've got Mr. Brock followed by Ms. Khalid and then Ms. Damoff after that. Go ahead, Mr. Brock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to start at the outset by wishing all my colleagues a Happy New Year. I hope that everyone had an enjoyable, relaxing time away from the Hill. A few of us, unfortunately, are back earlier than we anticipated, but this is an important issue, not only for parliamentarians, but it's an important issue for Canadians. As my colleague, Mr. Barrett, has indicated, 2024 has not started off on a new footing. It's essentially the same sort of issues that Canadians are dealing with in 2023 and 2022, and that's the issue of affordability. I know personally many members of my constituency who wrote to me and expressed their astonishment that how tone deaf this Prime Minister and this Liberal government was in light of all of the issues that Canadians are facing, that he would find it appropriate to accept an $84,000 gift for an extremely extravagant holiday in Jamaica. I think we are all of the same belief, and I believe all Canadians are of the same belief, Mr. Chair, that the Prime Minister is indeed worthy of a vacation. He is indeed worthy of spending quality time with his family. He was born of privilege. He maintains a lifestyle of privilege. It's now no shock to anyone here at this committee or in this House or across Canada that he is well connected with terms of friends and other associates around the world, and he probably enjoys staying at locations that offer some of the finer things in life. We don't begrudge that as a starting point. What we do begrudge is how a particular issue such as this has blown up to such an extent that it now has the makings of a scandal. This was a really non-issue from the get-go. If the Prime Minister and his office were completely transparent as to who sourced this particular vacation, how it was communicated to the Prime Minister, all the terms associated with he accepting the offer to stay at this luxurious villa, had he been upfront with Parliament, had he been upfront with Canadians right from the outset, I don't think we'd be here today. But the Prime Minister and his office have compounded this particular issue as such that we as parliamentarians are here asking for clarification. And you know, Mr. Chair, this isn't a one-off. This is a pattern of conduct with this Prime Minister and his office to mislead Canadians. Setting aside the controversy surrounding his trip to the ArriveCAN island and how he was found guilty of breaching the ethic guidelines, he promised Canadians in the House that he would do better, that he would communicate in advance with the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner and be upfront. Because the hallmark of the Trudeau brand, the hallmark of the Trudeau government, is transparency. That's what he promised Canadians during the 2015 general election. You vote for me, you will have the most open, transparent, and accountable government this country has ever seen. Has that happened, Mr. Chair? Absolutely not. I really don't know if anyone on the Liberal bench, and certainly the Prime Minister, even understand the definition of transparency. But most recently, the government has shuffled some positions. One of the shuffling of positions was the House Leader, the government House Leader, who is now occupying that position by the name of Steve McKinnon. Steve McKinnon was asked by the press with respect to this vacation. He indicated as follows: the Prime Minister, and this is a quote, the Prime Minister followed all the rules and in fact got his travel plans pre-approved by the Commissioner. We know that's a lie. It's misleading. It was deliberate. It was intentional on Mr. McKinnon's part to mislead Canadians. Because now we know that that office, the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner, does not pre-approve and give permission to vacation. The issue is whether or not the form of a gift qualifies as an acceptable one under the Act. To clarify, he says, the office, no, I'm sorry, that's the quote from the Ethics Commissioner. But he went on in a different interview, this is Steve McKinnon, the government House Leader, and it said as follows: I think Canadians don't want to deny the Prime Minister the ability to take a Christmas vacation with his family, and that's what he did. McKinnon told reporters last week, all of the rules have been followed, and the law has, as one of its fundamental pillars, transparency, which is, of course, the reason why we're discussing this today. The Prime Minister has acted transparently. Are we to accept the House Leader's word for that? I think that would be negligent. I don't think we'd be doing our job as His Majesty's loyal opposition to accept that at face value, in light of the fact that the office has since rebutted the position taken by the Prime Minister and his office that this was pre-approved. There's a lot of smoke here, Mr. Chair, and I'm sure there is a fire that's burning, Mr. Chair, that we need to find out its source. As I indicated, this is not a one-off. It is a series of missteps by this government. I talked about the ArriveCAN vacation. We then had the dress-up clown show in India. We then had the issue surrounding the very first Truth and Reconciliation Day. Again, one of the hallmarks of the Trudeau brand and our Prime Minister in the 2015 election was his pronouncement that there was no other relationship that was more important to Canada than its relationship with Indigenous Canadians. He created the very first Truth and Reconciliation Day after the discovery of the unmarked graves in Kamloops.
This was an important milestone in the history of this country in an effort to broker reconciliation between non-Indigenous and Indigenous alike. What did the Prime Minister do? The Prime Minister instructed his office to lie to Canadians to say that he was in Canada engaging in private meetings, when in fact, some sleuths in the Canadian public were able to track his flight and realize he wasn't in Ottawa. He was en route to BC to take a surfing vacation.
Point of order, Chair. Point of order, Chair.
Go ahead, Ms. Damoff, on your point of order. And as it relates to the standing orders, I'd like to just some clarification on that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, twice now the member has said that the Prime Minister lied, and I think we all know that that is not allowed under parliamentary rules. So I just wondered if you could remind him that he can't say that the Prime Minister lied. If that could just, you could remind the honourable member of that. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Damoff. I'm going to ask Mr. Brock just to be a little more judicious in his words. Thank you.
The Prime Minister was deceitful to Canadians, Mr. Chair. So instead of telling the truth that he in fact was in Ottawa, engaged in private meetings, he furthered his own selfish private interests in taking a surfing vacation on the very first day that he created. It was embarrassing, and it was shameful, and it was an event that should not have happened. So again, these are things that I wanted to bring to the attention of this committee, that this Jamaican Christmas vacation is not a one-off. It displays a pattern of miscommunication and deceit by the Prime Minister's office, giving 3 different versions of the truth as to what they communicated to the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner. And we as parliamentarians, but more importantly Canadians from coast to coast to coast, need some daylight shed on this issue. And for all of those reasons, I support my colleague's motion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brock. On the motion, I do have a list. I have Ms. Khalid, followed by Ms. Damoff, suivi par Monsieur Gourde, et Madame Fortier après Monsieur Gourde. Ms. Khalid, go ahead, you have the floor. On the motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I think on the motion, I think it's important for us to understand the context of it. So if it's okay with you, and through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask Mr. Barrett, I know that he had written to the Conflict of Interest Commissioner. He had written a letter. I'm just wondering if he had gotten a response and what that response was. And if that's okay, once I get the answer from Mr. Barrett, I'd like to take the floor back.
Mr. Barrett, do you have a response for Ms. Khalid or not?
I'd say that the most relevant point from the commissioner's response was that he's not able to share correspondence, if there was any, between the Prime Minister's office and his office. And so, hearing from the Ethics Commissioner and then being able to make a decision as a committee on if we were going to have documents produced, the committee deciding if we were going to have a review of the Act. These are all things that we can do, but it's not something that the Commissioner can do proactively.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Khalid, you have the floor.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Chair. I'm quite perplexed, actually. I mean, on the one hand, we give the Conflict of Interest Commissioner the ability, the privilege to look into and to consult with each member of Parliament, each elected official's affairs, to help them and guide them in how we conduct our affairs in the most ethical, the most transparent manner. And so, as Mr. Barrett had written to the Ethics Commissioner on this specific issue, it would be really nice to see, because this matter is now before the committee, what the actual response was. I would love for Mr. Barrett to share with the whole committee what the Ethics Commissioner responded back to him on these questions that we are all deliberating right now on this emergency meeting on this 106.4. So I'm hoping that Mr. Barrett, on his own accord, would be able to share and just forward, whether through the clerk or to all of our committee members, what the exact response was. It really, I think, calls into question how we conduct ourselves as members of parliament and the importance of the transparency with which we operate and the importance of making sure that there is trust in democratic institutions. I mean, you know, like over these past couple of days, I've kind of delved into this question of whether, you know, like, what's the difference between taking a vacation with a family friend, having consulted with the ethics commissioner, letting them know that you are about to do this, and then paying back the flights for it, versus you know, going on a trip with a Hungarian think tank to the United Kingdom and having thousands of dollars worth of fine foods. What is that? Where is that line? I mean, how do we really understand and appreciate what our role is as members of parliament? What is the role of the Conflict of Interest Act? And I think that this is, you know, whether it was you know, important or not to members of the opposition, I think this is an important question for us to really expand and to understand the nature of the study here, and to understand and appreciate that this is not just about one person. This is about an institution. It is about how we conduct ourselves. How do we ensure that that transparency and the obligation to Canadians exists in how we operate as members of parliament, being in a place of privilege where we have the opportunity to make policy, to advocate on certain issues, and what influences those issues. I mean, I just wonder if a Hungarian think tank would like to influence how we operate here in Parliament, and whether a stake would really implicate or influence what the Conservatives would want to advocate for or not. But I think that perhaps this matter really requires a deep understanding as to how the Conflict of Interest Act really operates within our Parliament, and how we can ensure that transparency exists and that we continue to maintain trust in our democratic institutions, in how we conduct ourselves as members of Parliament. And as I continue to opine on this, Mr. Chair, I just want to again say, I know that Mr. Brock had referred to the House Leader and the new House Leader. I just want to wish the former House Leader, Karina Gould, a very blessed maternity leave as she goes on to have a baby, and just really reconcile with her own family as Mr. and Minister McKinnon goes on to take on her role in an acting capacity as she builds her family. Thanks, Chair.
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
Very reactive as opposed to proactive. One company alone had built 36 different federal departments, billing for the same hours in a given day. Why was that not detected in 2018 when they submitted their invoices with your advanced data analytics? Why wasn't that caught, Minister?
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
Oh, yeah.
What's up, gang? Just Ehren right here at Canadian Looney. We try to learn as much as we can about Canadian federal politics. We didn't pay attention for a couple of years. Things went out of hand. And now we have this Trudeau, Jagmeet, Liberal NDP coalition, Polyev waiting in the wings just for an election because 70% of Canadians want an election now. That's what the polls say. There are so many things happening, so many scams and scandals with this Trudeau, NDP, Liberal, Jagmeet coalition. It's just a mess. A corrupt cabinet of unlikable ministers. So many things going on. Let's take a peek at this. Cue the card. Let's see what we're going to watch in this next video. Things here are wild. Let's see what we got coming up.
Horizontal audit yesterday.
I'll ask a direct question. Have you, to this date, been in direct contact with all departments and agencies regarding privacy impact assessments, particularly as it relates to the story that broke on the 13 departments? Have you reached out to everybody?
With our team through annual reporting, Dom, could you fulfill that?
Very quickly, because I'm respectful of your time. Departments and agencies are responsible for providing personal information banks for all their programs and activities. Respectfully, sir, the question was to the president. The president did not answer it. It just was as simple. You just said, like, take responsibility as a president. Did you reach out to everybody, Anita? Yes or no? It's that simple. If it's no, then it's no.
Okay. Minister, quickly.
Yes, the department has been in contact. Thank you for the question.
Wasn't that hard?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Green. Mr. Brock for 5. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, privacy is extremely important to Canadians and public servants, but so is safeguarding the prudent use of taxpayer funds. Federal spending on...
Thank you at Lost Art. That's amazing. Appreciate it. Greatly appreciate. We're trying to do more things for the members, and welcome to the crowd. Welcome to the gang. We are a great group of patriots that hang out.
Outsourcing increased to $14.6 billion last year, which is 74% higher than when the Liberals under Justin Trudeau promised in 2015 to cut back on the use of external consultants. We now have evidence that the ArriveCAN ballooned to at least $60 million. What you announced yesterday with your colleague, Minister Duclos, in my view, is only the tip of the iceberg, because Minister Duclos confirmed yesterday that the 3 companies in question that fraudulently billed taxpayers $5 million had nothing to do with ArriveCAN, which brings into the broader question of that $14.6 billion in outsourcing. How many billions of dollars, how many millions of dollars more in fraudulent contracting schemes are out there? I know you talk about advanced data analytics, and this is how you uncovered the data. But the government always had this data capability. So the biggest problem that Canadians have with your government, Minister, is you're very reactive as opposed to proactive. One company alone had built 36 different federal departments, billing for the same hours in a given day. Why was that not detected in 2018 when they submitted their invoices with your advanced data analytics? Why wasn't that caught, Minister?
I want to specify that the Treasury Board did not have any involvement with the development of the ArriveCAN Act.
I'm talking in a broader sense.
And
why wasn't the government able, with the capabilities of data analytics, to capture this in 2018 when it happened?
The app was built on an emergency basis under exceptional circumstances.
And the Auditor General basically said that a pandemic and the urgency does not mean you throw out the rules out the window. You had an obligation to safeguard taxpayer monies, and you abused that. You misused that. So what assurances do Canadians have that we're going to get to the bottom of the millions, if not billions of dollars?
Respecting.
Let me finish the question. What assurance can you give Canadians that you're going to actually follow up, you're going to identify these companies, you're going to refer it to the RCMP for possible investigation and criminal charges? What can you say about that?
I agree with the findings of the Auditor General's report. That is why I published yesterday an update to the Manager's Guide on professional services. I have also tabled through a series of estimates that we are reducing our reliance on outsourcing, including in the estimates prior to the holidays, $350 million in outsourcing contracts being reduced. Furthermore, reductions in the recent estimates that I have tabled to about $900 million in total. So we are working on continuing to reduce our reliance on outsourcing. That is something I take extremely seriously, and that's what I emphasized in my announcement yesterday.
Minister, your former role, one of your former roles, was Minister of Public Services and Procurement. You held that role from November the 20th, 2019 to October 26, 2021. I had before me the mandate letter that Justin Trudeau sent to you, and I'm going to read out various passages. I expect us to continue to raise the bar on openness, effectiveness, and transparency in government. It also means humility and continuing to acknowledge mistakes when we make them. Canadians do not expect us to be perfect. They expect us to be diligent, honest, open, and sincere in our efforts to serve the public interest. Your leader, Justin Trudeau, has been anything but apologetic. So, I'm going to give you the opportunity, Minister. It's plainly obvious to Canadians that that wasted $60 million on an app that was very ineffective, that didn't save one Canadian life, that is now subject to numerous RCMP investigations. Are you prepared to admit your role? Because during the rollout of 177 different versions of the app, you were the minister. Are you prepared here and now to apologize to Canadians for the lack of ministerial oversight? Yes or no?
I was not the minister. The app was developed at CBSA. I was the Minister of Procurement. My mandate was vaccines and PPE.
You were still part of that, according to the Auditor General. Are you prepared to apologize to Canadians?
I was not the minister.
Are you prepared to apologize to Canadians?
Thank you, Mr. Brock. That concludes your time. I appreciate
that. Is
appreciate
incorrect.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Baines, you have 5 minutes.
So what do you think, gang? Canadian looney for certain. Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
Oh, yeah.
And offshoots from that investigation?
Not offshoots, but if you look at the ArriveCAN as well as other similar types of situations, there are many is the category I would put in. I won't give us an exact number.
Many. So more than 6?
I'll say yes.
Yes.
So that'll be as precise as I can get to.
And is this in reference to contractors and subcontractors, or does it involve federal bureaucrats, and or does it involve government officials?
Hey gang, what's up? Just Ehren right here. Question period. Canada. Larry Brock is a man on fire. He used to be a big shot prosecutor in Ontario. Now he's doing federal politics. He lights up the House of Commons floor in question period all the time. The committees, he takes them over. You can tell he used to be a lawyer. So let's take a look at Larry Brock, the man on fire. Larry Brock is the real deal. Let's take a look.
Mr. Brock, you're leading us off. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, witnesses, for your attendance. Commissioner, you referenced in your opening statement multiple investigations into these matters. Is this in reference to the ArriveCAN issue?
There are multiple, correct, Mr. Chair, there are multiple investigations going on.
How many in total, officer?
I'd have to refer to Mr. Flynn and see if we'd have an exact number, but numerous.
Can I get an exact number?
So with respect to this type of activity, there's a broad number of investigations specific to ArriveCAN. There is one investigation specific to ArriveCAN.
So one general investigation and offshoots from that investigation?
Not offshoots, but if you look at the ArriveCAN as well as other similar types of situations, there are many is the category I would put in. I won't give us an exact number.
Many. So more than 6?
I'll say yes.
Yes.
So that'll be as precise as I can get to.
And is this in reference to contractors and subcontractors, or does it involve federal bureaucrats, and or does it involve government officials?
Specifically, I'm speaking to procurement irregularity investigations.
Okay. Again, the question put to you, is this exclusive to contractors and subcontractors, or does it involve government officials?
It involves the entirety of what needs to be looked at with respect to procurement
Okay,
contracts.
and I take from that the entirety could include contractors, subcontractors, the federal bureaucracy that dealt with those contractors, as well as the deputy ministers overseeing that department, and ultimately the ministers of the Crown who have ultimate responsibility. It's a catchment of individuals that potentially you're going to be looking at. Is that correct, sir?
I will not speak to any information with respect to the targets or subjects of the investigation. I will simply speak to the substance of it to give you as much information as I can today to be helpful.
Thank you, sir. I'm moving on to GC Strategies. On the eve of his call to the bar in the House of Commons, Christian Firth, one of the two owners of GC Strategies, by his definition, GC standing for Government of Canada, had his home raided. I understand this was a offshoot or a part of the RCMP detachment. It was the Sensitive and International Investigation Unit that was responsible for the execution of the warrant. How many officers were involved?
We never speak to the number of officers involved in our policing operations. We did, in that instance, take the unusual step of confirming that we did execute a search warrant.
Who was home at the time?
I do not have that information.
Can you provide that to us?
I would not provide that. Again, that would speak to details of the operation and personal information.
And what was searched?
I will not be speaking to that either. That's an active investigation. That's
Christian Firth confirmed what was searched. He actually reviewed the 6-page search warrant. And just for the education of the Canadian public who are watching this, anyone has the ability to apply for a release of that search warrant, and information to obtain. In essence, someone can apply to a court, get a court order, and actually review the content of that 6-page search warrant. You agree with me, sir?
If the warrant is not sealed, that is correct.
Right. Was this warrant sealed?
I do not have that information.
Can you provide that to us?
We can determine that, yes.
Okay. So Christian Firth confirmed to the House of Commons that basically his electronic devices were seized. And I know you can't confirm nor deny that, but he supplied that as information. Has that furthered your investigation into criminal activity involving Christian Firth?
The RCMP is exploring and reviewing all of the information as we do in any investigation that comes into our possession with respect to investigative materials.
And the potential criminal charges as outlined in that search warrant included what?
Again, I don't have that specific information.
Are you free to give us that information?
Once I determine whether or not the warrant was sealed and the contents of it.
Well, I'll cut to the chase. According to Christian Firth, who skimmed the 6-page report, it was in relation to fraudulent billing and forgery with respect to resumes. Would that seem accurate?
Again, I won't be confirming any information contained in the document that I've not
Okay.
read.
Mr. Firth had a partner. His name was Darren Anthony. Was his home raided as well?
I will not be commenting on that. Again, that would be confirming elements of investigation that, to my knowledge,
would he be part of the broader search of individuals who are part and parcel of your investigation with respect to ArriveCAN?
Again, I will not be confirming targets of investigation that are not already publicly known.
Has Mr. Firth been cooperative with the police?
Again, we're speaking to details of the investigation that I will.
Has
not
Mr. Firth been arrested?
Mr. Chair, I'd love to keep answering these questions, but again, I hate to repeat myself. And
Has Mr. Firth been charged with a criminal offense, yes or no?
I'm not speaking to any of the details of our current investigation, but if a charge had been laid, that would have been made public.
Okay. The allegations that founded...
Afraid. Coming back to you. Actually, I'll come back to you because I know you're next on the list. So, Ms. Yip, you have the floor for 6 minutes.
Hey gang, so there we go, another wild and crazy committee video. We always get to everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
I think, sir, that I made my point in terms of evidence versus politics versus conjecture. This is not a witch hunt. This is a function that any opposition member, particularly at this committee, would want to do, determine who this other Randy
Get
is.
it done,
That is
Larry.
the $64 million question.
Hey gang, what's up? Just Ehren right here, Question Period Canada. How's everybody doing? So, we have another Larry Brock in committee video to show. Larry Brock was a big time prosecutor in Ontario before he hit the federal political scene, and now he's taking names of Trudeau and Jagmeet's coalition, asking questions in committee, in the House of Commons, in the press, in the scrums. He's a very interesting guy to watch. He's intense as can be, and you want to have answers when he's asking questions. Most of the Liberal witnesses do not like answering questions whatsoever, and the witnesses never seem to be prepared. So let's kick it off and see what kind of questions Larry Brock has in committee for us today. Let's check it out.
Mr. Brock, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I can be,
On the amendment, sir.
yeah, I can be brief, Mr. Chair. I wholeheartedly agree with my colleague, Mr. Barrett's suggestions to the other opposition members. And I just want to clarify a couple of loose threads that I think need to be focused in. Canadians watching this may be left with the impression that there's really nothing to see here, that Global News had conducted a most thorough investigation on their own, and the Liberal bench, including the Prime Minister, has satisfied all the queries that opposition members have made on this issue. But this is a serious matter. And to Mr. Barrett's point, I know that good governance and high ethical standards is a very elusive concept for this NDP Liberal government. But it's not for Canadians. And the allegations are really damning that a minister who had been a minister for close to a year is communicating via a device to a company demanding within so many minutes a $500,000 payment to a company that he still has a 50% interest in. The text message made it clear that there ought to be a partners meeting. Minister Boissonnault confirmed that he views himself as a partner. This was a two-partner company. What concerns me is that the Liberal bench can clear this up, could have cleared this up the moment the issue rose by simply identifying the surname of this other Randy. And it just amazes me to the length by which the Liberal government will go to conceal the identity of this other Randy. And for the Canadians who are watching this, they're saying to themselves, well, what's the big deal? If it's not Minister Boissonnault, then identify the person. But when you've got every Liberal member literally on this committee, as well as Liberal members in the House, dodging and deflecting and not answering the question that's on the mind of Canadians, clear this up. Why are we wasting government resources and arguing this, and with filibustering that's happening not only today, but happening last week as well? Canadians want government to work, and when they see the kind of gamemanship that's happening right now, and the attempts to not shed any sort of transparency and light on this is extremely concerning. And to answer the question of Mr. Fisher, that this committee has never been designed to be a judge and jury, well, of course not. But our role as parliamentarians is to ask the tough questions. Some of us could have more skills than others in asking the questions, probing questions, that might ultimately elicit a response from a commissioner and or provide the basis by which we would extend an invitation to law enforcement to investigate. But that's our role, Mr. Chair. That's what we do day in and day out at committee. It is improper to equate that lawful parliamentary privilege and process as a means of acting as judge and jury. That's just not the case. What's also concerning is in the Global News report that Mr. Boissonnault's other partner lied, flat out deliberately lied when he said that the other Randy is the head of logistics.
I would like to see Larry Brock try to prove that Stephen Anderson was ever lying. He seemed to be a very reliable, trustable, authentic witness. I'd like to see you try, Larry.
Report indicated, in fact, the head of logistics was Mr. Anderson's father, whose first name was not Randy. Now, we're not talking about a large corporation. We're not talking about a multinational. We're talking about a small startup company with maybe one or two other employees. When asked by the Global News reporter, give us the surname of the other Randy, no one in that organization could answer that. In much the same way that every Liberal member of this committee and this government refused to give us the name of that person. And that's why we are here. That's why I fully support Mr. Barrett's recommendation that we need to have the other Randy appear and or have the government provide us with the surname so that we can make our own inquiries.
I believe the member is to be speaking to the amendment that's on the floor. I'm speaking, Mr. Brock, and both he and Mr. Barrett talk about possible sub-amendments, but there haven't been any put forward. So should he not be speaking to the amendment as opposed to imaginary sub-amendments that they don't seem to want to move?
Well, it's their prerogative, Ms. Damoff, to move a sub-amendment if they choose to, or speak on the amendment, which I believe they are. If at the appropriate time they want to move that sub-amendment, they can. But I don't think that I don't think they're talking in theory here. They're just talking about the amendment. So,
but they're not, Chair. They're talking about how they would like to amend it, but they don't actually amend it. So shouldn't they keep their comments to the amendment that's on?
But the amendment is to strike the other Randy referred to in Minister Randy Boissonnault's testimony. And I think it's extremely relevant, and you've been on this committee for a while. You know that I give members a lot of latitude. I think it's extremely relevant to be speaking to the amendment that's on the floor, which I believe Mr. Brock is doing at this point. So I'm going to ask Mr. Brock to continue, please. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And the last intervention has just proved positive that they don't want to hear from Conservative members who are asking the appropriate questions that Canadians want answers to. The other concern that I have with the proposed amendment is the duration of this meeting. The original motion had individuals appearing for 1 hour each. So let's take a look at the logistics behind the passing of the amended motion. The passing of the amended motion would give every member of this committee 1 hour with 2 key witnesses. And their evidence, as I've indicated already, is far more important to Canadians and far more reaching than what the Global News reporter had asked. And the Global News reporter had simply asked, what's the surname of the other Randy? There is a multitude of other probing, relevant questions that need to be put to both Ms. Poon and Mr. Anderson. But this amended motion deprives us a fulsome opportunity, Mr. Chair, to ask those probing, relevant questions. Because let's look at logistics with possibly 2 opening statements of 5 minutes each and an opening round of 6 minutes each for each member. We're at 34 minutes. Another 15 minutes for a second round, possibly another 15 for a full third round. And that's presupposing we don't have translation issues, that we don't have interventions, that we don't have points of order. You know it does not move like clockwork, Chair. So ultimately, at best, we might have 3 rounds for 2 highly relevant, important witnesses. And I'm strongly suggesting that we reconsider that 1 hour and go back to the original motion terms, which had them appearing for 1 hour each. Because quite frankly, Mr. Chair, we're simply going to be scratching the surface with the interventions of 2 key witnesses in 1 hour.
Brock lights it up. Round 2.
Anderson, don't know, but it appears just by reading between the lines that the failure of Gawi to make this deposit had been an ongoing concern. So I know that I originally had asked for records of September the 8th, 2022. It may find favor with all committee members if perhaps we go back 30 or 60 days of all communications between the minister and Mr. Anderson, because it tells me that this is an ongoing issue and concern. You assured me this morning this was done first thing and allowed you to hold this stock today. Stock. So this is the stock that was supposed to be delivered to Gawi that mysteriously burned up in a deliberately set fire. It's midday and nothing is completed. I am calling, so this is the other Randy, or it's the minister. I am calling Felix to discuss. Now, who is Felix? We've heard that name before. According to Mr. Anderson, Felix' surname is Papineau, and he is Stephen Anderson's right-hand man in Quebec. I am calling Felix to discuss. Be available in 15 for a, wait for it, partner call. Not consultant call, not intern call, not employee to partner call, partner to partner. Minister Boissonnault, a partner. His own words confirms I'm a partner with Mr. Anderson. So that's evidence. That's not conjecture. That's not a witch hunt. This is real evidence shared to Canadians by Global News. Now, the reporter for Global News obviously asked a number of questions. When asked if he worked with another Randy, this is the reporter to Mr. Anderson, Anderson stated that he did, but would not disclose the employee's full name. Well, of course, his partner wants to protect Minister Boissonnault. He knows what the rules are, and Mr. Boissonnault can't be involved in the day-to-day affairs as a minister of the Crown. So conveniently, he declines to provide the name of the alibi Randy or the other Randy. He said the other Randy was head of logistics. And I referenced this yesterday Mr. Chair, in my discussion at committee. Head of logistics. Well, as any good reporter would do, in this case, she did not accept that at face value. She conducted further interviews. She spoke with GHI's former suppliers, Edward Anderson, who is the father of the partner Stephen Anderson. He was identified as the company's logistics lead. His email signature had the title of Logistics Supply Chain at GHI in 2021, according to emails viewed by Global. She reached out to Mr. Anderson. He too declined to comment. He too declined to identify who the other Randy is, because again, he's the father of one of the partners, the other partner. He wants to protect the business relationship between his son and the minister, so of course he's going to decline no comment. She also reached out to Felix Papineau. I referenced that, Anderson's right-hand man in Quebec, and Shauna Parker, Anderson's sister. Again, both declined to respond to questions. And I referenced this yesterday, and I'm going to highlight it today. Mr. Anderson deliberately lied to the reporter when he said that the other Randy, or the alibi Randy, is head of logistics. It was his actual father. It wasn't. It wasn't the other Randy. It was the other. It was his father. Now, this is why we, in our original motion, wanted a representative Galway here, because they are part of this and they have a different perspective and a different interest. They're not here to protect Minister Boissonnault. Quite frankly, they want to get paid back the money that they lost or the product that they originally contracted for. They're out of pocket. So they reached out, or the reporter reached out to Galway. And I'm going to read out this passage in the press release, because I think it's quite telling. It was Galway's understanding during that text message that I referenced on September the 8th that Anderson was referring to Boissonnault, Minister Boissonnault. Not an intern, not an employee, not a consultant, not GC Strategies, not McKinsey, Minister Boissonnault, whom Anderson had told her, previous conversation, Chair, Anderson had told her was a partner in GHI and, wait for it, a public official, not only confirming Minister Boissonnault's partnership status, but also his political status. A public official. This was confirmed by Galway. They confirmed, we have had no direct communication with Mr. Boissonnault at any point in our dealings with Stephen. Well, of course not. He's not that naive to physically pick up the phone and write directly to Galway. He's going to do that through back channels. He's going to deal with that through his partner, Mr. Anderson. So Anderson, again, was asked further questions, would not respond regarding any of the nuances towards the towards the text. Then the story goes on and talks about how GHI has been embroiled in lawsuits, even though Mr. Boissonnault, Randy Boissonnault, the minister, was listed as director of the company for more than a year after his re-election. Now, going back to Galway, so it looks like as a result of the intervention of either the minister or the other Randy, they ended up Later that day, sending nearly $500,000 as a deposit to Anderson. Company says it never got the gloves it was contractually promised, and all that money was stolen. Mr. Anderson and GHI deny that claim, and coincidentally and suspiciously, 16 days after Galway wires the deposit, a fire breaks out that the police say was deliberately set after a break and enter, and all product, including records, including all invoices, literally gone up in smoke. The author of the report opines why a former politician, referencing the minister, and a hockey coach, referencing Mr. Anderson, launched a PPE business in the industry's most tumultuous time remains a mystery. However, court documents and interviews with suppliers and buyers who did business with GHI reveal the inner workings of a startup fraught with problems from the start. In lawsuits against GHI dating back to 2021, suppliers claim the company did not pay for products they delivered. On May the 3rd, the minister told Global News, "When I was running the company, all of the bills were paid," quote unquote. Court documents dispute that statement. A lawsuit filed by supplier Patterson Dental against GHI about 2 weeks after Boissonnault's re-election claims the company did not pay 15 invoices between November 2020 and January 2021, totaling just under $400,000. And I think, sir, that I made my point in terms of evidence versus politics versus conjecture. This is not a witch hunt. This is a function that any opposition member, particularly at this committee, would want to do, determine who this other Randy is. That is the $64 million question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, gang, so there we go. Another wild and crazy committee video. We always get...
It's revenue. That's $4.9 million in revenue.
Okay, let's not play games. What did you take home? What was your commission for ArriveCAN? Give me a number, please.
There is no number. Because
why not?
Because when you own a business and you have multiple...
You have to declare this as income, sir. So why would you not have this number? You're going to provide this committee, sir. You're going to provide this committee within 7 days your actual remuneration or bonuses on the ArriveCAN app.
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
Oh, yeah.
Larry Brock knows how to handle a difficult witness. This guy is difficult.
Mr. Brock, you have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, Mr. Yo. I understand from earlier testimony you became a public servant with DND on September the 19th of 2023, and you last testified before a committee on October 31st, 2023, approximately a month and a half after you secured full-time employment as a public servant. So the question I put to you is, and I've read the transcript of your previous testimony, sir, at no point in time, despite being asked several questions about the nature of your employment, you focused squarely on your directorship and your shares within Dalian, and you said absolutely nothing about the fact that you were a public servant. So it begs the question, why would you withhold that information from Canadians?
Yep. Appreciate the question. So this needs to be analyzed a little bit more. And it was September 19th that I joined the public service. It was 42 days later that the meeting, came to us, and we were invited as Dalian. I was invited to come to and speak at OGO as Dalian. The understanding is that Dalian holds a top secret facility clearance. And those that know what a top secret facility clearance is knows. And I hold a higher, and did hold a higher than top secret security clearance for Dalian. As well, in my short time of 42 days with the department, I also have a top secret clearance there and a secret clearance. So, you know, by nature of that aspect, and the fact that this had zero to do with D&D, it had zero to do with, you know, what I do during the day as a high assurance specialist for the department. It has zero to do with my employment there, as well as the fact that...
Okay, sir, I'm going to stop you there because my time, sir, I'm going to stop you there. My time is limited. I don't accept your response, and I think most Canadians don't accept that response. After a month and a half, you were divesting your interests in Dalian. You had resigned as a director. You put all of your interest in a blind trust, and you were working on a full-time basis with DND, correct? You had no interest in Dalian, yet you gave the impression that you were still an active participant in this two-person company. So, sir, with respect, I completely disagree with your word salad of an explanation, because it just doesn't add up. Now, I'm going to move on to a monetary aspect. You confirmed to my NDP colleague that you received $91 million in federal contracts since Justin Trudeau essentially took over government in 2015. What is your commission rate of that $91 million?
So as a business from Dalian's perspective, and these were TBIP's professional services contracts.
Sir, just the commission rate, please.
Sure, but I need to preface that to make sure that...
No, you don't. I'm asking for a number, sir, or a range. Yeah. What is your commission?
Most of the time, it ranges between 12 and 20%. And in this case, for the ArriveCAN aspect, okay, that 91 million wasn't ArriveCAN, by the way, but for the ArriveCAN aspect, it was 18.2 from what my staff told me.
18.2% for ArriveCAN. And you said you disagree with the AG's report.
Please remember to like and subscribe.
That you only received 4.9 million.
1.6 million a year, yes.
Okay, so your 18...
He's and the team.
How did you communicate, sir? It's a simple question.
Our team actually has been communicated with the Minister's office.
How did you communicate? Snail mail, email, telephone call? What did you do?
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
Oh, yeah.
Hey gang, what's up? Just Ehren right here, Canadian Looney. So we've got a pretty great video here to show. We've got 3 rounds with Larry Brock. He's asking questions about this $9 million luxury condo that the Trudeau's Liberal government purchased. $19,000 stove, $6,000 dishwasher. How much is your dishwasher worth? Anyways, 3 rounds with Larry Brock coming up right here. I don't know where they get these civil servants. They never seem to be prepared for Larry Brock. Let's go, Larry. Let's take a look.
Mr. Brock, please, for 5 minutes.
The acquisition of this extravagant condo on Billionaires Row has garnered a lot of attention across this country, as well as with media. I'm curious as to the consultations that the 4 of you have had prior to today's appearance with Minister Joly.
Mr. Chair, we have followed the governance and process according to our delegation.
It's not the question, sir. It's not the question. I have limited time. I'm interested in your discussions with Minister Joly in relation to your appearance. Did it happen?
Mr. Chair, no, there was no interaction with Mr.
Did you receive any emails from Minister Joly with respect to your appearance?
Mr. Chair, no, we haven't received any emails.
Has she weighed in on the controversy surrounding the acquisition of this property?
Mr. Chair, the minister was not involved in this
Thank you.
process.
Was she briefed by you?
Mr. Chair, we actually have brief, as per normal process, the minister's
Was she
office.
briefed on the acquisition of this property?
Mr. Chair, she was informed, and the Chief of Staff was informed in June 2024.
I'm going to push back on some of the narrative that has been circulated among Canadians.
You're quoted, your department is quoted as follows: considering the high renovation costs for the current residents and value of the property, GAC has recommended a relocation to a new, smaller, more suitable, and more economical apartment. In addition to representing a savings opportunity of more than $2 million, it will also reduce ongoing maintenance costs, property taxes, support future program needs, and meet representational requirements. Now, at first blush, this may give the impression to Canadians that you're actually downsizing. And when Canadians think of the term downsizing, they think of perhaps raising a family, having an empty nest, and moving from a 4 to 5 bedroom home to a small 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom condo. But that's the furthest from the truth in relation to the acquisition of this property on Billionaires Row. In fact, the old property on Park Avenue was roughly 3,800 square feet, and you downsized, wait for it, to a whopping 3,600 square feet. The actual rooms have actually increased. The old property had 12 rooms. The new property has 14 rooms. So you're not giving the Canadians the full truth here. You're not being honest with them in terms of the actual blueprint. Now, I also want to talk about the operating costs. You keep talking about these savings. We're saving Canadians upwards to $115,000 per year. I've got the listings from both of these properties from a website called Street Easy. The old monthly maintenance cost, this is the common fees, this would be the taxes, is $13,147 US per month. The new property is not a savings at all. Taxes and common charges are actually $15,213. So $2,000 US per month more for this new property that's supposed to be saving Canadians value. You're misrepresenting the facts. You're not telling the truth to Canadians. So I want you to be aware of this, and I want you to comment on it, because you talk in broad strokes about these savings. When you dig down into this, there's no savings at all. Now let's talk about the utility costs. What currently are the utility costs on Park Avenue versus utility costs on 57th Street? Is there a savings?
Mr. Chair, welcome the question to clarify the costs. I will turn to my colleague,
I didn't need that, sir. That's a waste of time. If anyone knows the answer, please, Mr. Dubois, answer the question.
I don't have the cost of the utilities at the new place. We have not occupied it yet. But I have the total amount that is forecasted to spend on the ongoing basis per month.
Okay, and is that a savings over Park Avenue, or is it the same, or is it more?
It's a saving.
Savings.
Yes.
You'll table that for us?
We could.
You'll table the monthly utility costs for Park Avenue and the monthly utility costs for West 57th. Okay? Now, what else about the
Sorry, Mr. Brock, that is our time.
Thank you.
Round number 2.
I want to circle back on Minister Melanie Joly's involvement in this latest Justin Trudeau scandal. We heard through you, Mr. Cousineau, that you notified her chief of staff sometime in June. You're going to give us the exact date. What I didn't hear is the actual date of the closing of the new unit. Presumably, real estate closes at the end of the month. Is it safe to say this occurred at the end of June of 2024?
Mr. Chair, if you bear with me, I'm just want to make sure that I have the information right in front of my eyes. The transaction approval, the payment and the transaction was towards the end of June 2024. Yeah.
But Melanie Joly's office was notified much earlier than the actual sale, correct?
Mr. Chair, as part of our process and communication, yes, we had communicated at the end.
And to your knowledge, you only communicated with the chief of staff. I'd like you to table the correspondence that you sent to the chief of staff. Will you do that, sir?
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if there's correspondence.
Well, did you pick up the phone and say, hey, by the way, we just purchased a $9 million condo on Billionaires Row? Is that what you did?
Mr. Chair,
Surely
again,
there must be something that's official.
Mr. Chair, I want to reiterate, we follow our delegation authority, supported by expertise and a team.
How did you communicate, sir? It's a simple question.
Our team actually has been communicated with the Minister's office.
How did you communicate? Snail mail, email, telephone call? What did you do?
Mr. Chair, I could confirm and verify how the communication was done with their
Fine. It's absolutely ridiculous that you can't tell me how you communicate with your own ministry. That's absolutely ludicrous. Now, I think Canadians want to know why there's been such a deafening silence from the minister herself, knowing that we've got a housing crisis, an affordability crisis, 9 years of Justin Trudeau's spendthrift and irresponsible government, and crickets from the minister with respect to a $9 million condo for Justin Trudeau's buddy, who once asked him, what kind of shampoo do you use? As ridiculous as it, look, why hasn't she communicated to the public about this particular purchase?
Mr. Chair, we follow delegation authority, and I wouldn't want to speak on behalf of the minister. I think that question should be more appropriate for the minister herself. Thank you.
Okay, let's talk about the property itself. It's listed. An elegant entry foyer with white Makuba stone floors, stunning powder room finished in jewel onyx, custom smoke gray floors, an Italian white Venato marble in one of the bathrooms, a freestanding copper soaking tub handcrafted by William Holland, custom bronze fixtures by Mr. Gurin. We talk about a kitchen equipped with a wet bar, Cristallo gold quartz-right countertops, custom handcrafted cabinetry, a full suite of Gaggenau appliances. Gaggenau, the most expensive appliance maker in the world, an oven, a Gaggenau oven costs $19,000. So I guess shopping at our local Leon's or the Brick wasn't an option for the Canadian taxpayers. But, I'm wondering why you had to have all of these features. I'm referencing your statement. When you talk about the old unit, last refurbished in '82, the apartment does not meet new building codes nor standards. So what I just described to you as luxurious pieces, are these GAC standards, or more frankly, are they Tom Clark's standards? Can you answer that question, sir?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to just reiterate Mr. Clark didn't have any influence in the selection and approval of this new condo. The feature that we just described are not part of our what I would call space requirements. And that, we don't look at that kind of feature. We look at the value of the property, and we felt that the value proposition and the value for money was there for Canadians.
Well, the oven is $19,000. The refrigerator is $13,000. The coffee maker is $4,600. The freezer is $11,000. The dishwasher is $6,000. How on earth is that value for the Canadian taxpayer?
Mr. Chair, once
Just
again...
a very brief answer, please.
Once again, Mr. Chair, that's not part of the space requirements that we do when we do the actual evaluation of a new property. And I'll leave it at that.
Great. Thanks. We're
Round number 3.
finish up with Mr. Brock and then Mr. Kuzmierczak.
Thank you. I have a number of odds and end questions, some loose ends based on what we've discussed over the last almost 3 hours. I want to clarify, very early on in the first hour, my colleague Mr. Barrett had asked for details and tabling of any and all correspondence in relation to the sale and the acquisition of both condos. I want to specifically ask for any, and I appreciate you said it a number of times, that Mr. Clark did not influence the decision to sell and the decision to purchase. But we still want any and all correspondence between Tom Clark and Global Affairs in relation to both properties. Will you table that, sir?
As mentioned, I will be pleased to look into it and see what's available and get back to this table.
Okay. Now, in relation to the 57th Street property, it was on the market for 235 days, just shy of 8 months. It sold for $6.63 million. Did you pay full listing price, or did you negotiate the price down to 6.63 US?
Mr. Chair, always looking for value for money. Once again, I will turn to Robin to talk about the process of the negotiation on this one, which has been done, as I mentioned, with the real
I just want the question answered. I don't need an explanation.
Yeah.
Did you pay full listing, or did you negotiate?
There was a negotiation that took place, and we paid less than the listed price.
How much less?
I think it's in the document that was shared with you, and it's 6.5 million US.
Right, but how much from the listing price to the selling price? What was the difference?
It was listed at, I don't remember exactly, but I think it was 6.89 million.
6.89, and you bought for 6.63.
6.5. 6.5 million we paid.
Okay, so
US.
roughly what, $400,000?
Yes.
Okay. And with respect to the renovation costs on Park Avenue, how many bids did you receive from Global Affairs?
The renovation was assessed by our quantity surveyors, that are the professionals that basically assess the work that needs to be done based on plans done by architects. And we never went to market for those renovations because we work with those numbers.
Why wouldn't you go to market to get the best value?
Is when we got the information that it was up now to 2.6 million, we wanted to change the approach and look at all of the
Well, that's based on your internal numbers, though. Why would you not go market to see whether or not it would be a more feasible option by trying to find the best renovation cost possible? Again, to save the taxpayer further money. Why wasn't that an option?
Well, the quantity surveyor are very good at assessing the cost of a project. So when we saw that the costs were escalating,
Is that what you do for all your official residences in terms of renovation costs?
We do.
You don't look for best value?
We look for best value. We use quantity surveyors first to get an appreciation of how much money it's going to cost.
Okay, let's move on. You talked about that it was not, the old property was not accessible. Can you explain, and I think you did, that one of the washrooms had to be accessible? I truly understand that. Those are Canadian codes. But what was done specifically with the new property to make that accessible?
Well, I understand that the floor plan was looked at, and then it was determined that the options exist there for an accessible bathroom to be.
Okay, and that's being installed as we speak, because Mr. Clark is not in that residence right now, correct?
No, he's not there, and I don't think we need to renovate. I think that the bathroom is readily available and accessible as it is.
Okay, so you don't need to put any additional devices on the walls to make it even more accessible? It's just the ability to use a wheelchair to get into the washroom? Is that what you mean by accessible?
That's, yes.
The width of the door was more accessible at the new location versus the old location?
Yes.
And you couldn't renovate the existing entranceway to a washroom? There was like 7 washrooms in the old location. You couldn't just tear out the door and make it accessible? Was that discussed?
Sorry, we're talking about the
old property,
Chancery.
Park Avenue.
Well, that was part of the renovation projects that we looked at. It was to make it accessible.
Okay. You also mentioned that,
Real brief,
and I had
Mr.
asked you questions about property taxes, monthly property taxes, and I explained to you that you are lying to Canadians when you say the new property has less carrying costs than the old, and I pointed that out to you. But then I also heard, in reference to a Liberal colleague asking you questions, that you are tax exempt pursuant to the Vienna Convention. Can you explain that, please?
We're out of time, but can you provide a very brief answer?
Absolutely, and very quickly, the new property is definitely cheaper because of that. We will be tax exempt on the new condo because of that Vienna Convention, absolutely.
everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics. I don't mean to freeze up. It's late. I'm gone, gang. We're out. This is it. I'm going to roll the credits, I guess, or the ending. And that's it. Thank you so much to everybody that tuned in tonight. It was fun to watch Larry Brock, like all the highlights, well, some of all of the highlights. That's it. We're out. Take care, gang. Thank you all so much for watching. How do we get out of here? Come on.
I think our leader, Trudeau, I don't think I've ever heard him say a true word.
Oh, hello. Do you have a warrant to be here? Oh, yeah.
It's time for a change in this country, my friends. A real change.
Wiggle and squirm as you might.
She's such a pig. She's disgusting. Gross.
I will keep
He's
my
gross
promises.
too.
WTF.
I know this place is where I am. No other place is better than. No matter where I go, I am proud to be Canadian. I am, you know I am. The world that works
The one we call Canadian.
Gentlemen, beam me aboard.
Merci. What can I say about such generous praise? I want to start by saying, here we stand in what used to be the Museum of Civilization, and I stand as a British Columbian Member of Parliament from Coast Salish Territory, Haishka, and I'm standing in front of longhouses of Haida, Nuchalnath. I mean, and here we are, like, has anyone bothered to mention, I am honored to stand on the traditional territory of the Algonquin Nation. Thank you, Miigwech. And since Perry Bellegarde is here, I want to mention we stand on his traditional territory too. And I want to say, like, what the fuck was wrong with the rest of you? You didn't notice we're standing on traditional territory. Like, what doesn't scream out First Nations about this stage? Well, anyway, the rant endeth here. I'm here and honored to be here among my colleagues, allowed to speak when you all want to go home. I stand having missed my girlfriends, Megan Leslie, born in Ontario representing Nova Scotia, and Lisa Raitt, born in Nova Scotia, representing Ontario. But really, that would have been my fun moment, but they don't let me in on that. I don't know why. I keep begging, Lisa, Megan, what can I do? I want to be a backup girl, do up. Anyway, I have very little time to share with you what must be important, which is to say, we've now heard from the only 3 of us as federal party leaders, but there are 4 of us. Voici les 4 chefs des partis au niveau fédéral. Et la question clé, c'est que lesquels ce n'est pas comme les autres, comme des autres. Peut-être tout le monde pense immédiatement de Stephen Harper, parce qu'il est le chef qui n'était pas ici. Toujours, il n'est pas ici. Il n'a jamais participé aux grandes soirées des journalistes parlementaires. Now, when he first didn't come to Parliamentary Press Gallery dinner, and I have to admit, having way before I was in politics, when I was at Sierra Club, I paid attention to the Parliamentary Press Gallery dinner. It never occurred to me that we would have a prime minister who didn't show up, right? It's been 9 years. Okay, I've got to calm down. It's been 9 years. And we wonder, at first I thought, he doesn't show up because he's shy. He doesn't know how to do jokes. He has no music to do. But, maybe he doesn't like to be among, qu'est-ce que tu peux exprimer? Maybe he doesn't like to be with humans. But the thing is, now we know that's not true. He can do funny. He can do music. And he still doesn't show up. I don't get it. I really don't. I mean, he should be here. That's what prime ministers do. They show up to be humiliated like the rest of us schmucks. So I've begun to think about it. And I thought about, I really appreciate, by the way, thank you, Press Gallery. Thank you for returning to our traditional origins. I thought, well, maybe he's afraid of the tradition. You know the tradition. The flying bread roll, the jettisoning of baked goods. Maybe he suffers from a really significant, extreme manifestation of gluten intolerance. But I think, yeah, there's got to be a closet here somewhere. He doesn't have to face that all by himself. So it's, despite the fact that Stephen Harper isn't here, it's not of Stephen Harper whom I speak. Which of us as leaders is not like the other? So, okay, I meant me, because there's a couple of things about me that are different. I'm going to go fast, because last year I mentioned I'm the oldest. You know that now. I'm the oldest one. I think you know this, but I'm also the only leader with artificial parts. You do know this. I don't mean my boobs. I mean my hips. My hips are both artificial. The right side has a consumer malfunction part. The security guards, Sarmaine Son, you can tell them, I squeak. I walk through the floors of Parliament, and the guards have told me, Madame May, you cannot sneak up on anyone. Because this is a part they don't use anymore because it squeaks. It goes some days like a chirping grasshopper, other days like a really bad squeaky screen door. I'm not kidding you. Some of you know this is true. My daughter said to me, Mummy, you are to Stephen Harper as the crocodile was to Captain Hook. Only you go squeak, squeak, and he went tick-tock. But never mind. Some of the other leaders, in fact, may have artificial parts. They just haven't admitted it. So we're not sure. I mean, I don't know for sure about Stephen Harper's hair. And I'm also not sure about what the hell the Liberals have done to Justin's hair. What the hell? We need a global movement for the liberation of curls. Who decided that it was important to lacquer them down? And I don't know about what other artificial parts. I'm not going to go into Tom Mulcair because it's not fair. Because I think he's going to be perfecting his Rachel Notley imitation, which may involve losing facial hair. But the thing about it is, I really did mean me, because what about me is not like the others? lequel de celles-ci c'est pas comme des autres. Évidemment, je suis une femme. I'm the only girl on the leader team. I'm the only woman running. I mean, I don't believe in running for Prime Minister because our parliamentary system of Westminster parliamentary democracy means all MPs are equal and none of us are elected to be dictator. Sorry, Stephen. The thing is, our parliamentary democracy is all of us are equal. But the thing is, I'm the only woman party leader, and I know what men immediately think. Because the poor boys, they really bought into Freud. That whole sexual maturation thing on the Freudian scale, that we go from the oral, I'm not going to eat the mic, into the anal, God, I don't want to think about it, or the genital. Guys get stuck on this Freudian stuff, so they immediately assume that I'm envious of the things the boys have that I don't have. They assume that I suffer from classical Freudian debate envy.
Crazy.
But I no longer do.
She's
Praise
crazy.
the Lord, free at last.
Free at
I
last.
am not suffering from debate envy because, thanks to a few of the boys, I get to be in the debates. Yes, it will be fun. I'm looking forward to it. And I am happy to say we are all equal and we get to participate as equals. So that's that on that. But you know what? I have a completely deranged and not, there is no sequitur. This is a non sequitur. Do you guys ever wake up with old theme songs from former black and white TV shows that you never thought your kids would ever see and they're running through your head? Like every now and then I wake up thinking about, Lisa, you've got to wait. Lisa, I wake up thinking about a horse is a horse, of course, of course. This morning I wake up thinking this. Why am I thinking this? Do you guys wonder?
Hang on. Stage by Waldorf and Scott.
Wait, you know what? Do you guys remember this theme song? Welcome back. Who knew Cotter was spelled K-H-A-D-R? Welcome back, Omar Cotter. It matters to say it. Welcome back, Omar Cotter. You're home. Doesn't it strike you as unusual? I didn't use up my time. No, you didn't.
There's a lot unusual about your speech, Liz, but we're going to take off.
Omar Cotter, you got more class than the whole fucking cabinet. Thank you.
Well, there was definitely.
We're out, gang. Thank you for watching. Ehren, Canadian Looney. Like, subscribe, share, get notified. I'm cracking up inside, man. Oh, God. I wasn't watching politics back then. Would have been such a great story. Ciao, gang. Thank you for watching. We're out.